Hello again, young people. This is a video about all of the decimal rules we need to follow when we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, and decimals are involved. So to start off with, if you have to add or subtract with numbers that have decimals in them, there's a couple of rules you need to follow. First, you need to make sure you line up the decimals themselves, and then make sure you've matched up all the place values. So the decimals should be aligned, your ones places should be aligned, your tenths places, and so on. And the second thing to remember, after you add or after you subtract, bring that decimal straight down in your final sum or difference. So first example here, I've got 4.3 plus 1.245. So when we add numbers, we can change the order if we want. It doesn't matter with the order when you're adding numbers. But I'm going to put the first number on top here, put the second number on the bottom, and this is addition. So you'll notice I've got my ones places here aligned, the decimals are aligned, the tenths places are aligned. I'm going to add 2 filler zeros to fill those empty spots over the 4 and the 5. So now I have numbers there to add from, or add to. So 0 plus 5 would give me 5, 0 plus 4 would give me 4, 3 plus 2 is 5. Bring down that decimal, and then 4 plus 1 is 5. So the sum here would be 5.545. In one subtraction example, I've got 10.07 minus 4.95. Now when you subtract, your numbers absolutely 100% have to stay in the same order. You cannot change the order here. So I'm going to still line everything up appropriately. All your decimals are aligned and all your place values are aligned. Now you're ready to subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. I have to regroup here. I have to go all the way to this 1. So it gives 10 to that 0, but I still need to borrow 1 from that 10 to give to this 0. So 10 minus 9 would be 1. Bring down that decimal. 9 minus 4 is 5. And I have a 0 here, so there's nothing to do with that 0 to bring it down. So now the difference here would be 5.12. So when we multiply decimals, so when you multiply, you don't have to line everything up. It's unnecessary. You don't need to add zeros to fill empty spots. You just need to line your numbers up, multiply, and then remember in the end, however many numbers there are behind decimals within the problem itself, within the two factors that you're multiplying, that is how many decimals you have to put into your answer. Show you what I mean. So I have 4.36 times 1.2. So I do not have to line up the decimals. I do not have to line up the place values. My decimal is going to come into play in the very end when I'm putting it in my product or in my final answer. So I want to multiply as usual. Starting with this 2, 2 times 6 is 12. I'm going to carry that 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus the 1 is 7. 2 times 4 is 8. Now coming over to this second column of numbers, I do want to remember to put something to fill that spot as I'm sliding over one place. So 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we got to add up these rows that we multiplied. So I have 5, 2, 3, 2. Now here is where my final job comes into play. I have to look at within the problem. So you have 4.36 and 1.2. In 4.36, there are 2 numbers behind the decimal. In 1.2, there is 1 number. So I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places total within the problem. So I need 1, 2, 3 decimal places in my answer. So my final product would be 5.232. So you can either circle those digits, that's helpful, and then count up how many circles you have, but find your decimal in each number, count how many digits you find behind that decimal, and then that will be how many decimal places you need to put in your product, in your final answer there. Alright, last but not least, everybody's not so favorite is dividing decimals. particularly long division of decimals. So a couple things to remember. If you have a decimal in the number on the outside of a division problem, or the second number if it's written horizontally, you have to move the decimal to make the outside number a whole number. You do not have to move it just because the inside number is one. Be clear on that. So second thing, if you move the inside number, if you move the outside number, excuse me, you have to move the inside numbers to match it. And it has to be moved the same amount of times. And then finally, in your quotient, when you're all done, you just bring the decimal straight up. And it's better to just illustrate this rather than talk about it. So here I have 1.08 divided by 0.2. So with a division problem, the first number is the one that is going inside. The second number is on the outside. So when your outside number, okay, has a decimal in it, you have to make it a whole number by moving the decimal place. In this case, it has to be moved one time to make it a whole number. If you move that outside decimal, you have to move the inside decimal to match it. So now, the new problem, essentially, what we're going to be dividing here, is a 2 going into 10.8. Okay, so we had to move the outside decimal to make that 0.2 a whole number. We moved it one time, so I moved the inside number's decimal one time as well. So then I'm ready to divide. 2 cannot go into 1, but it does go into 10 5 times. We'll bring down that 8, but remember I said to move that decimal straight up. Sometimes it's good practice to just do it as you pass it. And then 2 goes into 8 4 times. Running out of space here, but 2 times 4 is 8, so you have no remainder. So the quotient here would be 5.4. So you only need to move decimals around when you're dividing if that second number, or the one on the outside, has a decimal in it. And if you move it, you have to move it in the inside to match that. So you guys got this? Now go compute with decimals.